Okay, I know. You've read the title. Just hear me out, alright? Hi. I love Spider-Man. He is my second favorite superhero of all time. I love Spider-Man. I grew up on the Amazing Spider-Man movies, watching them as they came out in the theaters, and I love Spider-Man. In 2018, I watched Into the Spider-Verse for the first time, and wow, I love Spider-Man. So here we are, June 2nd, 2023, and I watched Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse yesterday, and wow. The title of this video is I Didn't Love Across the Spider-Verse. Because I didn't. But I really liked it. For the most part. There's parts of it in here that just don't sit right with me though, and really stop this movie from even being in the same conversation as the first, in my opinion at least. And I want to cover all of that in this video. What I loved, trust me, there's a lot. What I like, what I didn't like, and my final thoughts on this movie and what I hope for in the sequel. For the sake of people who maybe haven't seen the movie yet, go watch it. But I will do a quick no spoiler review before getting into spoilers. There might be time codes on the video, I don't know, just check. But if you do end up enjoying this video, then hit that like button and subscribe. It helps out the channel a lot. It means the world to me. It really does. But I don't want to waste your time. You're here for Spider-Man anyway, so let's get right into it. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Quickly, my no spoiler review. This movie is beautiful. Every frame is a piece of art, and there are worlds in this movie that are genuinely jaw-dropping to look at. In particular, Spider-Gwen's world has a really cool moving art look to it that really makes every scene in that world 100 times more interesting, even when characters are just talking. Miles is the perfect Spider-Man in this movie, really growing up from who he was in Into the Spider-Verse, and he has a really great story with his family that I'm glad they didn't rush through or just make him an angry teenager. There's a lot of depth with his relationship with his parents that makes it feel real, and once Miles actually goes across the Spider-Verse, this movie introduces characters that I know will become fan favorites. For me, Pavitar Prabhakar and another character that I don't want to spoil were probably my favorites, even if one of them was just there for comic relief and was only in the movie for like 5 seconds. The story they are telling is almost perfect, with one major flaw in my opinion that is very spoilery, so I won't get into it here. But this movie celebrates the Spider-Man character in ways no other Spider-Man movie has ever even attempted to do. So if you like Spider-Man, any of them really, you will probably walk out of this movie with a big dumb smile on your face. I'd give this movie a really strong 8, maybe even 9 out of 10. You'll probably love it if I had to take a guess. Alright, from this point on though, spoilers. And trust me, you don't want this movie spoiled for you, so I'll warn you just one more time. If you want to go watch this movie, then pause the video, go watch it, and come back. I'll be waiting right here. Not really, but the video will be here, so you know. I really like this movie, but I don't love it. I've seen so many people talk about this movie now, and in my opinion, recency bias is taking over a little, so I don't really know what people really think of it, but I'm just gonna say right out of the gate, in my opinion, this movie is not better than Into the Spider-Verse, but it's still either my second or third favorite Spider-Man movie of all time, because it's really good. The music is great here again, just like in the first, with this one even succeeding the first one in beauty. There are shots here that days later I can't get out of my head, and I don't know if I ever will. In particular, the wide shot of Miles and Gwen looking out at Brooklyn is just really pretty. Also, the scene of Miles on Earth 42 when he's running in the rain might be one of my favorite scenes in cinema history. The characters are amazing too, which is no surprise after the first movie. Miles' parents are great. I love the interaction between Spider-Man and Miles' dad at the beginning of the movie. Gwen really steps up her game here as pretty much the main character of the movie, with the whole thing opening with her. And on that opening though, I do have one minor complaint, and that is I couldn't hear anything she was saying, which I've seen online was actually a pretty common issue. Just the music was so loud and Gwen was so quiet, and it wasn't even like, it didn't feel like purposefully drowning her out. It just felt like a weird mixing, which actually kind of upset me because I really wanted to hear what she was saying, but I know she was basically just recapping the first movie, and when I watched it the second time, she was much easier to hear, so I don't really know what happened there. But yeah, Gwen's kind of the main character of this movie, with Miles taking the center stage later and not even really finishing any of his character development or story by the end of the film. While Gwen actually has a full arc that is extremely satisfying and has a really good ending to it, it doesn't change the fact that Miles never leaves Act 1 of the movie, but it's not the biggest issue in the world, especially knowing that Part 2 comes out in like 9 months sense anyway. I think Miguel O'Hara, or Spider-Man 2099, is a menacing and cool antagonist for Miles in the second half of the movie, where his motivations are somewhat valid, with the idea that you can't save one life if it endangers billions of others, but that's not Spider-Man. Spider-Man would save that one life and then try to save the billions of others, which Miles shows, and Miles proves that he really is Spider-Man. Alright, I'm sick of this probably racist idea that Peter Parker is Spider-Man and Miles Morales is Miles Morales. Stop. Please. You're embarrassing yourself. They are both Spider-Man. I thought Into the Spider-Verse taught us that like 4 years ago. Come on. And when Spider-Man 2099 snaps, he really snaps. And I loved it. The whole fight between Miles and Miguel is really good. Also, Miguel's backstory's interesting. It's different and I like it a lot. The scene where they're going to space on that like train thing and Miles decides he's going to do his own thing, that's one of the coolest parts of the movie in my opinion, and a really great scene. One thing I see some people complain about is why don't any of the Spider-Men, like any of them, want to help Miles? Like, I mean, Spider-Punk does, and I love him for it. Alright, Hobie Brown is one of the best characters in this movie. I can't wait to see more of him in Beyond the Spider-Verse. But like, really, not even Spectacular or Peter B. Parker? Like, what's up with that? And I'd just say it's deep-rooted manipulation by Miguel, which is crazy, and I don't love it, but I think it's cool, and I think that they're maybe setting it up so at the end of Beyond the Spider-Verse, we might see an ending where all of the Spider-Men go back to just their worlds and they're free to be Spider-Man with no rules or canon events stopping them from saving people. Which, by the way, the canon events are cool. I like them. I especially like that the death of Captain Stacy is kind of the main canon event and not something like getting the symbiote or the death of Gwen, which would really be slapping the comics in the face for the sake of the movies. But they didn't do that. Good. I'm glad. I mean, it is a little silly. I won't lie. Like, they just, with a straight face, call them canon events throughout the whole movie, but I kind of love it. Also, the Spot, I just think he's a really cool villain. I love how he goes from villain of the week and not being very good at being a villain to probably one of the most powerful and menacing villains in a Spider-Man movie. He's also just really cool, and I love his personality so much. He was easily one of my favorite parts of the movie, and I was kind of disappointed that he just disappears after the 1 hour mark, and he doesn't really come back or even get a little bit of a conclusion in this movie. Hopefully we get a lot more of him in the next one, but they do kind of set up a lot for Miles to deal with already, so I don't know. I'm hopeful. I've talked a lot of good about this movie, probably because it's really good, but now on to some of my more mixed or negative thoughts on the movie, you know, the bad. I think the pacing is weird. I felt like the timing of this movie was just kind of off. Not bad, but I felt like the movie kind of shoots itself in the foot a few times right before the finish line, which is annoying, but I also do think was on purpose, mainly because there isn't a finish line for this movie, much more of just a benchmark. But it still does kill a bit of that gratification you should feel at the end of a film. Now, obviously, this was kind of expected going into a part 1 of 2, even if they did change the titles, which would lead you to believe it would work better as a solo film, which it doesn't, but I don't mind the title change. I don't like part 1, part 2 titles anyway. I just think it either should have condensed itself down and found a better ending point, or should have just ended sooner. There were like 5 different times in the last half hour where I was certain the movie was going to end, and it just kept going. And honestly, after the first time where in my mind I was sure the movie was over and it didn't end, it kind of took me out of it a little bit. I got right back in, but it was enough to get me thinking, and I do feel like that is my biggest complaint. There is something weird going on and around the end of this movie that stops it from being the best Spider-Man movie, especially since it feels like half a movie. I would genuinely call this the best first act of the best Spider-Man movie, but this isn't the first act. This is a whole movie, and alone without that, you know, hopefully great sequel that we're getting, it doesn't stand as of right now as the best. Unlike films that it's been compared to a few times like Empire Strikes Back or Infinity War, which both end in ways that still make you want the sequel just like this movie, I feel like they have more of that gratification in the ending. Infinity War had it by making Thanos the protagonist, and Empire just had it in the way of it felt like an ending. It actually has the exact same issues as Across the Spider-Verse in my opinion, but handles it just slightly better by finding a time to end the story and know when to continue it in the next one, which is kind of how I know this won't really be a big issue, because nobody complains about Empire. It's considered one of the best ones after Return of the Jedi. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, I think it would be wrong for me not to mention at least a few of my favorite Spider-Mans in this movie, because there's a lot of them, and I went in pretty blind to this, so there were a lot of surprises for me, which was a great experience. Starting with Donald Glover showing up as a live-action Prowler, that was really really cool to see, and it was a really fun reference to what could have been in the MCU and also what was the inspiration behind Miles Morales. I thought Lego Spider-Man was a really cool addition to the film. I thought it was really funny. I think every single J.K. Simmons J. Jonah was amazing. I think he showed up as like 3 different J. Jonahs. Insomniac Spider-Man got a fun little cameo, even with some dialogue, which actually surprised me, but I thought was really cool. Speaking of surprising dialogue, Spectacular Spider-Man himself even got a line in the movie. And as some of you might know, I just watched that show for the first time last year, but it was still really cool to see that, especially since so many people consider that the best Spider-Man. And I'm sure people who grew up on Spectacular loved that moment. Andrew Garfield is in here. I mean, kind of. And that's my Spider-Man, dude. And he just put a big grin on my face. Even if he was mourning the death of Captain Stacy, I was smiling. I knew it was weird, but I was smiling, alright? I found it really funny that they just had a normal Rhino locked in one of those cell things. I don't know. I know my humor's broken, but I found that really funny. And then another really funny one was when the 60s Spider-Man came back and he was trying to catch Miles and he just missed him because he was two-dimensional. I found that hilarious. I don't know why. The Spot going to Venom's universe was cool, but I had that one spoiled for me a few months ago, so I didn't really react to it. It does kind of give me hope that we might see a live-action Tom Holland Spider-Man in part 2, maybe. Maybe. He wasn't in this one, so. And then the last Spider-Man I want to talk about, Ben Reilly, Scarlet-Spider-Man. Okay, look. I actually kind of like Scarlet-Spider. I know, crazy. I'm probably the only one. He has fans, believe it or not, and I'm one of them. And I do kind of find it weird that he would be one of Miguel's, like, top guys. That doesn't really suit him, in my opinion. But I also found his character really funny. I loved the scene in the alley, but it also kind of annoyed me because we're never going to get good Scarlet-Spider content again after this. Not like we got good Scarlet-Spider content in the first place. But it was also really funny to me, so I'm torn. But I think I was okay with it in the end. In conclusion, damn, Beyond the Spider-Verse is going to be amazing. I can just feel it. We have a really cool team that Gwen has going into the movie, and that has me so excited. Both of the Miles are going to be here, and I can't wait to see how that goes down. I think we're going to get to see the Spot at his full potential, which I can't wait for. I think the movie is solid with a few issues that make it not my favorite Spider-Man movie, but I'd still honestly say it's a really good movie, and I'd give it a 92%. I liked it. I really, really liked it. Also, tell me what you guys thought of the movie in the comments below. I'd also be curious to know who your favorite Spider-Man was in here. There's a lot to choose from, but yeah, that's about it. So, bye.